Greetings, everybody. We're live again for another episode of on my channel, Young Penitent. I'm here with a highly esteemed guest, Father John A. Peck. He is a returning guest, and he was on here about 6 months ago, and so he kindly offered to come back on the show. And we had such a good time last time. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. Tonight,
Thanks for having me back.
Tonight, the topic we have chosen is missions and evangelism. But before we get to that, well, first of all, Father, would you give us for people who do not know who you are, could you give us a brief introduction, please?
I'm a priest in Phoenix, Arizona. My parish is at ArizonaOrthodox.com, where I have a lot of resources for inquirers and catechumens available online. We're doing this before COVID was a thing, and my parish is All Saints of North America in Youngtown, Arizona. I have 4 active missions. We started 5, but the one in Clovis, New Mexico was taken care of by the Antiochians during the COVID lockdown. We couldn't get there, so we're very happy that they were able to pick it up. And we have a new one in Florence, Arizona. So that, and I'm also the dean of the Great Martyr Family Orthodox Theological Academy. It's an online academy that trains men for the diaconate in the church, and also others that want to be able to do basic Bible studies, church history, about spirituality, stuff like that, if they want to do that in their home village. We have students in 28 countries. Many deacons have been ordained in our program in almost every jurisdiction, not every single jurisdiction. And we also have 3 of our alumni have been ordained priests, which we did not expect, and wasn't. It's not a replacement for seminary, but it's a good online program, and evidently the bishops think it's at least sufficient for their deacons to be ordained. So that's what keeps me busy and off the streets most of the time.
So that was I had heard that you had started all of these missions, and that was how I chose our topic for tonight. Also, I try to follow your ecclesioclasm class. So Father John has a channel on Rumble, and he has his own show, a weekly show, which that's ecclesioclasm, and that's how I found out about him. And there's a link to what below in the description to that channel. And Rumble is quickly becoming the go-to alternative for YouTube. So everybody should go over there, make an account, and tonight, and subscribe to his show. It's really good. He starts off by going over the weekly, the news for the week, basically, and he covers it with from an Orthodox Christian perspective. And so, everybody can't always read every article that comes out, but he does a pretty good job of staying on top of things. And then he gets to it, and then he kind of breaks it down for you. So, you get all the week digested for you in his weekly class.
As well as we can, and we don't leave people just traumatized by the news. We also talk about what to do about it,
sure,
and how it's a spiritual. The issues of today are spiritual issues, and therefore they have spiritual solutions. Try to remind people of that very much.
So what I thought we would do today, since that's what you do on your channel, I thought today we might cover a few of the pressing news stories from this past week.
The weekly roundup, yeah.
Yes, and I'm not going to bring them up on the screen. I have not prepared that, but everybody knows that we had this week happen. Hamas and the Palestinians attacked Israel, and this is something. So this is what I want to ask you about this. From time to time, every couple of years, it seems there's some fighting kind of erupts between Palestine and Israel, right?
Right.
So tell me, you have a little more age and experience as witnessed by your glorious white beard. So from all of your years, from all of your wisdom and years of experience, do you think this is just another conflagration, another eruption, or is this different? Could this be maybe a little bigger? What do you think?
I do think this is a little bit bigger. You're actually clever to pick up on that. The attack of Hamas into Israeli territory looked like the movie Red Dawn. Uh, Dozens and maybe hundreds of parachuters all coming in. So just a nightmarish scenario for those that were there. Now, here's the thing: the most technologically advanced, most prepared uh, uh, army in the world is the Israeli Defense Forces. They're not for 1 minute do I believe they suddenly abandoned 80 different posts on the Gaza Strip. I don't believe that for a minute. I think this is well, I think this is a broader picture attempt, but I think this is an attempt to take the eyes off of China and Taiwan. This is a clear attempt to get eyes off of Zelensky in the Ukraine and his neo-Nazis. That's been a failing thing in people's eyes, and so they want to remove attention from it. And I think what you have is this would be, and I don't know the military terms for it, but you see it in a lot of historical battles where one particular phalanx is drawn back like they're retreating, and the enemy charges after them, gets caught in a pincer movement and destroyed. And I think that's what happened. I think that the Hamas has made their move. I'm sorry to say that I don't think there's a single government in the world today that looks at their people as indispensable. I'm not saying the Israelis are any different from our own government. Those people are collateral damage. They're replaceable, sadly, sadly. And I think that the Hamas has been encouraged to sort of look for this and to take advantage of this moment. It was much more organized than most of their attacks. And now, of course, and let me say this also, we always get news way later than it's actually happened, but we know that they've turned off electricity in Gaza. We know that they've turned off water in Gaza. You can't live without water. You can't live without sanitation. People always forget the sanitation part. Plumbing is literally responsible for modern civilization. Without it, uh, it is a disaster. And now they've issued an evacuation order for Gaza. So that's going to leave the Gaza Strip wide open for Israeli occupation. They're going to sort of take it back. It looks that way. And of course, the problem with this is that so many things in the sort of deep state, the world elite, are always pushing to move things forward. Israel was one of the most vaccinated nations in the world, which still surprises the heck out of me, considering the blatant and repeated statements by Bill Gates and many, many others that the depopulation of 95% of the world is their explicit goal. So call me crazy, but yes, this is a terrible, terrible loss of life. Unfortunately, Hamas reveals who it is. If they're beheading babies, if they're capturing young people, if they're using old people as shields, that tells you everything you need to know. It tells you everything you need to know about who you're dealing with, unfortunately. And you say, well, the Israelis are just as bad. I'm not saying they're not. I'm saying two wrongs don't make a right. And when you're dealing with horrible, horrible people, they do horrible things. Period. That's not a surprise, and nobody should be shocked by it. Unfortunately, I think this has all been a big false flag type setup, and we'll see what happens as time goes on. People always ask me, whose side are you on? I said, I hate war. I'm not on anybody's side. If I support Israel, it's not because I'm supporting Israelis, it's because I'm supporting the only democracy in the Middle East. People forget that. That Yasser Arafat for decades was hoarding billions of dollars that he received from the UN, from others. Did he do anything with it for the Palestinian people? No. No, they're still refugees. They're still in refugee camps on the way to Jordan for generations now. No Arab nation will take Palestinians, and They leave them out to hang. They scream and cry about it as if it's something important to them, but they won't lift a finger. They won't spend a nickel to do anything about it. So it's a lot of rhetoric. I'm also expecting to see a lot of staged deaths. Hamas is notorious for staging, bodies all over the place and people weeping and crying, and then suddenly one of the bodies twitches and moves. The guy didn't realize he wasn't supposed to move till they stopped filming. They do that all the time, and we shouldn't be surprised by that either. Our own news stations lie about where they are. They do a lot of green screen stuff. They're in the wrong place. You see the same car go by in the back as when one person's in Washington and another's in New York. They're obviously in the same parking lot. And this has been going on for a long, long time. So I don't, I try not to pay too much attention to things they show us, because we know just from YouTube, deep fake stuff is powerful and easy to do. And now with artificial intelligence, it'll be indistinguishable for us. We've got to not believe what we see on the internet and be very careful about what we see with our own eyes. Technology is outpacing our ability to discern. So discernment is the most important thing of all. And of course, pray for peace. I know
Right.
that sounds crazy. We forget sometimes. You want to do something, pray for peace. Pray for peace every day. Pray for each other. It's very important. Very important.
Yeah, I'm hoping this doesn't. I'm really praying that this doesn't like the war doesn't become a contagion. And there are certain people who would love to go to war with Iran, for example.
Right, right. And this
And
is the kerosene to their fire. They're like ready to go. The neocons are ready.
yeah,
They're ready to go over the Hormuz Strait. They're ready to go to war with Russia anywhere and everywhere. They're ready to go to war with China. They always have a plan to get into war. They never have a plan to get out of it. You ever notice that? That's how you know they're the enemy of the nation. They're the enemy of mankind, because they're idiots. They talk a good game, but they have no understanding of how things actually work. And you have to have an exit strategy, or at least a goal of knowing, once we get here, we're done. Instead, it's perpetual. It's
yeah.
constant stuff. So
Well, the 20% of our economy is the military industrial complex. So it makes sense why they would want to keep stirring up
oh, sure,
trouble
sure.
in different parts of the world.
Makes money, keeps them in business.
Yeah. I wanted to ask also, what is the situation of Christians, and particularly Orthodox Christians in Israel, Palestine, and in the Middle East in general during this?
Ironically, this is something I actually don't know. I have parishioners who live in Bethlehem, but I don't have any contact with them. I haven't seen anything about Christians in the midst of all this. Of course, a large percentage of Israelis are Arabs. It's not exclusively Jews, and Israeli Arabs. Many of them support their own country, and they don't hate all the Jews. They don't hate all Israelis. Many of them just want to be left alone. So I don't actually know the condition of
Okay.
those people right now. But I pray that they are safe and that they are not being swept into an either or situation, which is often what they try to get us to do.
All right. The second news story that I've been seeing that I want to ask you about. You live in Arizona, and you share quite a long border with Mexico. And
Yes.
I've been hearing that there's a border crisis, that people are flowing in. What have you noticed as an Arizonian? Is that how you say it?
Arizonan, yeah.
Arizonan?
Yeah, no, the border crisis is a real thing. They've got to stop playing games with it. When you have Chinese men, all military age, all the same kind of tattoos, all the same kind of haircut, all the same kind of clothing, coming into America as,
Chinese? Did you
oh
say?
yeah, yeah, hundreds,
Huh.
thousands
Interesting.
maybe,
Hmm.
and as refugees. These aren't refugees. When you have Middle Eastern, middle-aged men, military-aged men, uh, they when you run from trouble, you take your family with you. When you run to trouble, you leave your family behind. Well, none of their families are here. And the worst part of it, of course, is that the child traffickers are very, very busy. They bring in busloads of kids. Uh, the guy on the bus says that he's the uncle of all of them, and because of our idiot government, they go, "Oh well, I guess that's okay if you're all related to each other." And the sex trafficking continues. It's the inability of Americans to discern right from wrong and good from evil is going to destroy this country very quickly. And this is all happening on a daily basis here. Now, by the time they get to Phoenix, they're usually shipped to other parts of the country, shipped to other places where there aren't enough Africans, there aren't enough Muslims, there aren't enough Chinese. So they're doing what they're trying to do in Germany. The German way of life is disappearing because although they ship refugees there, the refugees don't talk to the Germans, and the Germans don't talk to the refugees. And they get free housing, they get free food stamps, they get free health care, and so they're flooding the system, but they're not becoming Germans. They're not learning the German language. They don't care about any of it. They don't have to. They know that they're being taken care of by the higher powers and the elite to prefer these refugees to their own people. They're trying to do the same thing here. When one of these people commits a horrific crime, rapes a child, and then murders them, and the judge lets him off because, well, he's from a different culture. So that that judge should be hanged. Period. The nonsense of this has got to come to an end, and it's going to take the sleeping majority. It's going to take the average American to say, I'm not giving my country away to people who hate my country. It doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter what religion you are. If you hate America, then you have to go, and that's what it's going to take. Period. Now, for us as Orthodox, and especially those of us who are in the Russian Orthodox Church, we already have a target painted on our back. We know that the FBI has files on us. We know that they're claiming that Vladimir Putin is trying to seek good spies in our midst. Well, here's the thing. You pay spies. It's really easy to find out if a Russian Orthodox priest is a spy because he'll have money in his account. Most of us don't make anything or make very little from our priesthood. Being a spy, uh, it's the most ridiculous thing. They worried about it a little bit during the Cold War. The Russian Orthodox, they could be troublesome, but they found out by and large that they could harass them. But there was absolutely people who were here, with a few exceptions. People were here for a reason. They wanted to get away from all that, and likewise, the Russian Orthodox who are here, most of us are Americans. I mean, I'm not even Russian. I'm Anglo-Saxon. I have no Russian. I don't even know Russian. I would be a really hard one to get intelligence from, and I don't have any good information anyway. So all I'm looking forward to is harassment.
Oops. Say that again. I was
all I'm
distracted.
looking forward to is harassment, because
okay.
that's all that's all it can
Yeah,
be.
that was
I
that
don't
was
have any
going to
useful
be
information.
that was going to be my next question. But before I get to that, what do you think is the deal with these tattooed Chinese men, military age men that are crossing the border? What is going on here?
Well, two things. One is they're waiting for the order to take to the streets and wreak havoc, and the other is that they're sent here by the Chinese Communist Party to find the Chinese Americans who are speaking out against the party and to let them know, mafia style, we know where you live, we know where your children go to school. You might want to rethink what you're doing. Plain and simple. Nothing complicated about this. Nothing complicated about this. None of these men should be allowed in the country. Period. But the buy off from the Chinese started with the Clintons, who helped set up Confucius institutes all over the country, in college towns and everything. These aren't places to study Confucius. These are places to foment rebellion and to try to get spies and to try to get
Hmm.
sorry, it's Friday, so my
Yeah,
vocabulary is
I'm right there
is
with you,
very
man.
yeah.
Maybe I chose the wrong day.
They're trying to inculcate this understanding that the Chinese way is the best way. Socialism, communism, it's the true freedom.
Okay.
Lies are truth. Hard is easy. Uh, Bondage is freedom. All that other nonsense that you can only believe if you've been to college and think you know something. Today's youth, I'm sorry to say it, not even counting teenagers, young adults up to, I'd say, almost age 40. You couldn't fill a thimble with the historical information that they actually have. I mean, factual information. You couldn't fill a thimble with it. And
Sure.
I used the term thimble because most of them have no idea what that actually is. So they have to go home and look it up. But it's not just if you don't understand history, you're doomed to repeat it. You've got to understand the law of unintended consequences. There's consequences to everything you do and don't do, say and don't say, and they go through life screaming if somebody doesn't call them the right pronoun. They're snowflakes made out of tissue paper. They're the useful idiots of the next regime,
Hmm.
and it's going to be brutal because it's going to be worldwide, and they're gonna start with. I mean, COVID is a beautiful example. You know, uh, hundreds of thousands of people dead, maybe millions dead from COVID, not counting the vaccine or the vaccine and the boosters. COVID itself has the dangerous percentages in terms of mortality and morbidity as seasonal flu. Now, it's not seasonal flu, but you noticed, you probably remember, they stopped counting seasonal flu. They literally said seasonal flu has disappeared. Flu's endemic. You can't get rid of it.
They're
It
still pushing
returns
the flu.
constantly.
They're still pushing the flu vaccine, even despite
Right.
that. But we
Right.
have to be
So
careful. We can't
get
say
your
too
flu
much truth.
vaccine, get your RSV vaccine, get your Gardasil vaccine, and of course, not only get your COVID vaccine, but get 18 boosters before you're
This is
age
a
6.
this is a lot of truth, Father. I don't think YouTube can handle so much truth. You have to watch it. Watch it. What?
Oh, yeah, forgive me. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did a
Well.
show. I did a show with somebody else, and they said we don't dare put this on YouTube. We'll get banned. So I
Well.
apologize in advance. I'll settle
Yeah.
down.
We'll see
I,
what
I
happens. Maybe I'll get a strike. Who knows? But
I apologize in advance. I forgot you're broadcasting for YouTube. I
that's all
forgive
right.
me.
A little bit, maybe a strike would be a little bit of good, little good advertisement. People are like, "Oh, that must have been a good episode. I gotta go
He wants
watch
to say
that."
something important, right?
So the last question I had, you mentioned you started talking about the FBI. You know, they had this. There was this article that was printed, and you were talking about the FBI's warning that there could be spies. You know, in Rocor. You're a Rocor priest.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
For
talk
3
with
years.
other fellow priests about this? Have you had any conversations? What else can you say about this situation?
Not just foolishness. I mean, it's just an excuse to violate our freedoms so that other people will look and go, well, they might have been spies. I guess it's okay to violate their freedoms. I guess
Mm.
it's okay to violate their privacy. That's all. That's all it is. I talk to other priests about stuff like this, but honestly, we don't talk much about this because this isn't anything new.
Okay.
This isn't anything new. Most Rocor priests today that I know are Americans, and most of them are not of Russian descent. So, if they're screaming at Russian communists, we just sort of look around like nobody hates communism more than we do, and none of us are Russian. So, not exactly sure what to do about that. Of course, there are some Russians in there. There's some Russian nationals in Rocor too, but their whole thing was when they got caught uh, looking specifically at traditional Catholics as extremists. See, here in Arizona, the current attorney general ran on the platform of don't let extremists take over our democracy. Don't let them steal democracy. Well, that's democratic speak for don't let Christians into the process of democracy because they're not interested in democracy, of course. When Zelensky says democracy is at stake in Ukraine. There's no democracy in Ukraine. It's the third most corrupt country in the world after China and North Korea. What an all-star team. And they regularly jail journalists. They regularly jail their political opponents. There's no democracy to save there, but it sounds good on the news. So whenever, unfortunately, this is becoming more and more true, whenever they say something, they're accusing their opponents of exactly what they are doing. And that is an old Marxist trick. You accuse your opponents of what you are doing. So if they're accusing us of being spies for Russia, spies for China, that sort of thing, then we're looking in the wrong place. We need to look at the people who are shouting the loudest and see if they're taking any Chinese money. Because I'm not a betting man, but I'm willing to bet the little bit I have in my savings. I'll bet it all. Those guys are getting money from China. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. 100%. Not even a question. Not even a question. So that's where that's at. A lot of the clergy are mostly concerned about, they know that COVID was a trial balloon. A lot of bishops closed churches. Very concerned about that. Our bishops out here did not close churches. They got grief for that. Turns out they were right to leave the churches open. But the local municipalities, will they lock down harder next time? Will they leave churches alone next time? Will they require vaccine passports? The WHO has already got 199 countries to agree to vaccine passports. They've already agreed. They've already approved it. So where are they? Well, they're just waiting for the next pandemic, and they all keep saying, and we know it's coming. Well, they know it's coming because it's been planned. You know, when you need a crisis and you've got a cure, you need something to cure. You need an event that you can cure. So you don't ever show up without the solution. But this is sadly very, very jaded look at world politics. But when you look at human history, conspiracies aren't the exception; they're the norm. Sadly.
So, thank you. So I'm going to take a break and make a few announcements here. If you'd like to support the show, you can send in a super chat, and helps cover the few costs that I have. Or if you don't want to support with money, you can pray for me, or you can share the stream, share it in your
share the
favorite
show. Yeah.
Share it in your favorite, with your friends, or in your chat group or Telegram channel that you like to read. And speaking of Telegram channels, I have started a channel and a group, which if you would like to, I encourage you to, there's a link in the description below. I would encourage you to go and join it. We have a nice mellow chat room there that you can go and share with other fellow Orthodox Christians what's going on. I also have started a Spotify for my episodes. So if you don't want to sit and watch, you can start to listen to the shows as you go in your car on Spotify. And beyond that, please like, share, hit the bell button, and subscribe and comment. Now,
I should do all those things for my own stuff.
Yeah.
I don't have time to do all that, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got to push it. Father, and go follow his show, because Father has an excellent show. I spoke a little bit about it beforehand. I try to keep up, like I said. And now I'm going to shift the focus of this stream to that which we promised in the title. Father John has some secret sauce. He has been, he's doing something right. He's got this parish that he runs himself as a priest, and he's got all of these parishes nearby that he has helped to start and grow the congregations. And so we're going to try to find out from Father what exactly he's doing. What is okay, here's how I'll frame it like this. We have, for example, a nearby town that's a good sized town that that there is no Orthodox church there.
Mhm.
Okay. And we even have some parishioners that come to our parish and they have to drive all the way over from that nearby town. What would you do, for example, if you wanted to start a, like, what is, do you have a process that you've already kind of developed that you
Oh yeah,
follow? Can
yeah,
you
and
talk about that?
it's not complicated. In fact, let me just preface it with this. Apart from before I started doing a lot of these missions, um, I over a decade ago, I started realizing that statistically, and orthodoxy is about reality, so statistics matter. Statistically, the reason people come to church is always very different, always different. But the reason they return after their first visit, over 90%, because of the preaching, because of the message, the sermon. And that's consistent in Barna surveys and polls going back many, many decades. There's a lot of other things. People are friendly, great. Music is great. Yes, food is good, wonderful. You know, the church is beautiful, etc., etc. 90% consistently come back because of good preaching. And back in the day when I was a younger priest, I will confess to you that I was wildly disappointed with Orthodox preaching. Now, there's
Hmm.
good preachers here and there. My own priest was a very good preacher, but many times you go somewhere else and uh, you just they wasted your time. They either just parroted the gospel that had just been read, or some ridiculous amount of Peter Pan advice that doesn't mean anything, doesn't help you when you're struggling. You know, people come to church for a lot of reasons, but some people come to church and they're hungry, really hungry. Some people come to church and they were just beaten up last night by their spouse. Some come to church the day after their spouse has abandoned them. The children, somebody's in the hospital and they need a message of hope. They need a serious message. So I thought the bar had to be raised. So I contacted a couple of people and they said, "Oh, yes, we should definitely do something about this." And I said, "Well, let's do something." And that's where really it all ended. So finally, I got tired of waiting and I created the website Preachers Institute, which has a lot of sermon resources, a lot of biblical resources, a lot of excellent theological articles, and actual patristic sermons on different feasts and different topics. So if somebody like myself wanted to study what did the fathers actually preach about dormition, what did they actually preach about annunciation, and I can fold that into my own preparation. I can use some of the sermon resources that are on the website to add and pepper into my homilies. So I started doing that. Then, and I promise this has a point, then we started talking about inquirers. There's no place to send inquirers on the internet. Okay, let's do something. Sure. Well, guys, this is going to cost some money and a lot of time. Uh, don't worry. We'll support you. We'll get it going. Waited forever, waited forever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're gonna do something about it. Finally, I got tired of it, and I put up the website Journey to Orthodoxy. Every conversion story that I could find and get permission to put up, and some I didn't get permission to put up, I just put up, and I found it, and I divided everything up by. You're a clergyman that converted. Is somebody who's a mass conversion, mass baptisms, somebody from the Roman Catholic Church, Byzantine Catholic, Anglican, Episcopalian, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Baptist, Church of Christ, Wiccan, pagan, uh, any kind of heathen, Muslim. You can actually go and look the stories of people from your own background and see their experience of coming into the church, which I thought was very, very formative. It was helpful for people. So I did that, and I said, okay, we're up and we're going. You know, can we get some support now? Well, it's already done. What do we have to support? You know, what do we have to do about it? So this is all coming out of my own pocket, and I don't make
Hmm.
a lot of money.
Right.
You know, I have to work on the side as a graphic designer to put food on my table a good portion of the time. And I confess, I was getting kind of pissed off by this. But what I discovered was if you actually want to get something done in Orthodoxy, you got to do it. Don't wait for the bishop to give you a blessing. He doesn't care. Don't wait for the priest to come to a consensus. They never will. When I started,
Wow.
I actually started the first Orthodox internet radio network that was on 24 hours a day. It was called Incarnation Broadcast Network. And I put it up, and immediately I was assailed by my fellow clergy. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I said, I'm broadcasting. Well, nobody's going to listen to that. I said, okay, that's all right, but we're going to broadcast our services, and then we'll just play music and sermons in between. And we just had it going 24 hours a day. We set it up into our church sound system. So anytime we had a service, we turned it on and it was broadcast live. And you could tell because you'd hear babies cry, you'd hear people coughing, stuff like that. It was really nice. And one day I got a visitor for that, and somebody knocked on my door and said, "Hi, my name is John Maddox," and I know who John Maddox is. He was the greatest name in Christian radio. He was running the Moody Radio Network. I said, "Come on in," and he said, "I heard you're doing something on radio." I said, "I'm doing nothing. I'm broadcasting stuff which is low quality, but it's all I have, and I have no idea what I'm doing." And he said, "Well, we were talked for a while, and as I remember it, at a certain point, he got a little, when are you going to show it to me?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "When are you going to show me your setup?" I said, "John, you're sitting on it. The computer under your chair is literally the whole thing." And he asked me, would it be okay if he, tried something similar? I said, "I don't know what I'm doing. Of course it's okay." And that's how Ancient Faith Radio was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I had nothing to do with it.
Mm.
But I did meet him, and he was very kind. He didn't want to hurt my feelings, and I just told him, "I have no idea what I'm doing. I've been waiting for somebody like you to show up and take over who knows what they're doing." And of course, it's become a giant media thing throughout the world. And then the final thing I did was Good Guys Wear Black. I needed a site to send young men that were discerning of vocation to the diaconate or the priesthood, where they could read articles about the diaconate and the priesthood. And so, knowing that I wouldn't get any help and I wouldn't get any assistance, I just put up Good Guys Wear Black on my own. And those websites all still work today. So here's my point. If you know that there's Orthodox people somewhere, all right, go to them. All I did was this. I knew from my time as a priest in Prescott that shortly after I got there, there were many people that came into the church, baptized, and had to leave. And they lived far away, 3-4 hours away, 5 hours away, not near a church. They had children. Okay, so I'm thinking, well, children need to have access to the sacraments at least.
Mm-hmm.
So I drove out to them and I said, "I'd like to talk to you. If you are interested," I said, "I'm not interested in showing up and doing liturgy. I'm not interested in that. I am interested in starting a parish here. If you will help me, if you'll commit and help me build a parish, help me start that critical mass that every community has to start with, around which others orbit eventually, right? If you'll help me do that, I promise you, I'll be here one day per month myself, and I'll do divine liturgy, and I'll try to come up more often and do classes and things like that, and we'll get things going." And then I did the same thing to one family, just one. I said, "Let's find a place to worship. Your children will receive instruction. Your children will receive the sacraments. You don't have to drive 3 hours to church once a month, which is exhausting. So you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry about that." And when COVID hit, we opened up another church because the local Greek church just shut down, leaving all the children with no access to sacraments. And we weren't going to do that, so we went and opened another one. And it's not surprisingly, uh, people responded. Now everybody's not mission minded. Everybody's not interested in that, and a lot of Orthodox people just don't want to commit. There, unfortunately, we've created a country of Christian consumers. Many monastery people are like this. They love to live around the monastery because it doesn't cost anything. They have access to the highest spiritual help, but they're not willing to invest a nickel. They're not willing to invest time in an actual parish. And the monasteries will tell you it's good if we have parishes outside the monastery. We don't have time to catechize people. We don't have time to baptize and marry and to bury. We will do it when we have to, but that's not our job. That's the function of the parish. So I started thinking carefully, and as you know, we were doing the missions conferences. It's understanding very clearly that evangelism is one thing, missionary work is another thing. They're related. Apologetics also. You evangelize people by sharing the gospel. Apologetics is related to it because you defend the faith as well as you can. Most of the time, you actually don't do that. All you really do is discuss your experience. Nobody has to have a PhD in apologetics. All you have to do is describe your experience. My life was like this before I encountered Christ. I encountered Christ, and this is what my life has been ever since. I've been a Christian my whole life. Can't use that example, but I did have this unsolvable problem, and this is how Christ helped me through it, got me through it. That's what people need to hear. That's the best apologetic. Anyway, apart from evangelism and apologetics is, of course, missionary work. But what is that? Well, missionary work is literally planting churches. People don't think of it that way, but even when you send people to far off places where there are no churches, as soon as they're done evangelizing and as soon as they're done doing the apologetics, they plant a church. So I said, well, let's stop fooling around. Let's do missionary work. Let's plant churches. Now, 2 of those churches already have their own priest and have had their own priest for at least 2 years. The churches themselves, I think, are 5 years old now. None of these churches started with 20 or 30 families. Every one of them started with one household. And let me say this, for those who are not aware, it's easy. It's easy to start a Christian mission if you're not Orthodox. Get a microphone, get a Bible, get a keyboard, and a couple of chairs, and you're ready to go. Obviously, Orthodox missions are considerably more complicated to get started. And when you're starting with practically no one and nothing, it's not the same as starting with 30 families. 30 families is a parish. You have no work to do. Going from 0 to 30 families, that's work. That's a lot of work. And unless you've done it, you don't know just how much work it is and what has to be done. So we simply paid attention to what we were doing, paid attention to the steps that had to be taken at each point, what those steps and stages were, so that people understood. Well, if you have 2 little old ladies and they want to start a parish, great. Do they have to incorporate? No. Do they have to have a bank account? No. Do they have to have a jurisdictional affiliation? No. They just want to get together, pray with each other, and they want to slowly build something up. Well, you don't need all that. You can over organize yourself to death. If you got 30 families, you got to be organized. If you got 3 families, you don't put everybody in the parish council. You don't over organize right away. Pour your creative energy into outreach and regular services. So what I'm saying is this: we just went and did it. We didn't ask permission. We did get a blessing to do it. Okay, don't get me wrong, but we didn't ask how we should do it. We didn't. We didn't. Frankly, follow the advice we were given because it was terrible advice. It was just terrible. Go through the yellow pages. Nobody has yellow pages anymore, and look up all the Greek and Russian names. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. If those people wanted to go to church, they would go to church. So let's stop trying to sweep in people that don't want to go to church already. If we start something, they may show up and they'll be welcome. Absolutely, we'll welcome them.
Sure.
But if they wanted to start something, they would have started something.
Can I make a comment there?
Yeah.
So we are a Russian parish here that I belong to, and Our priest is he's very welcoming. He tries to make it a place where Russians would feel welcome, and we do have Russians come,
Mm-hmm.
but not a lot. Mostly it's American converts who are getting baptized.
Mm-hmm.
But the Russians, believe me, they know we're there, because I'll tell you a story. We had the Hawaiian Mer streaming icon come to our parish with
Ooh,
one
what a
day
blessing.
notice. 1 day notice. And we had to this day, was probably the most packed service
Sure.
we've ever had. All the Russians came from the
Everybody from
woodwork,
everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, from Portland down to Bedford to everywhere in between. They came and they were there. So they'll come for a miracle.
Right.
They're there, but I like your
But
point about that. Sorry for
but there
interrupting. I had to tell
no,
that.
you're absolutely correct. And here's the thing. Somebody said to me one time, well, your missions are all in English. I said, well, I only know English. Well, what would you do if we have a Spanish speaking? We would do it in Spanish. So I'm not English isn't a holy language any more than Slavonic is. I said we would do it according to what the people need. Now, the mission we were just getting going in Florence are Russians who want a Slavonic liturgy. So we're going to give it to them. That's what they want. They need catechesis. I'll need a translator for those that don't speak English. Most of them, I think, speak English, but there are some that don't speak English, and there's 100 new Russian families moving to that area every month. So we don't expect them to help us start things out. We do expect them to show up at Pascha, Easter, all the, Pokrov, all the big Russian feast days, and we'll provide that. We'll make sure and provide that. But the point is also, they're not going to be off the hook. They're going to have to actually advance their spiritual life, because that's the only thing that a parish is good for. You can maintain your spiritual life at home with no help and no input. But if you want to actually advance your spiritual life, you need formation, and you get formation primarily liturgically and in your private prayer rule with your spiritual father. A lot of other things go into that, of course. I'm not trying to oversimplify, but my point is it starts with the sacraments. The number one most significant way that beginners receive grace is through the sacraments. So it's critical. It's absolutely critical that those sacraments are available to people. Now, I mentioned beforehand that my friend Father Thaddeus Hardenbrook is an expert in the Orthodox parish as community, how you turn that into real community. And even, I don't get paid for endorsing this, but this is his book, The Orthodox Parish as Community. It's very thin. It's very nuts and bolts. It's excellent. This is the world expert. I'm telling you, this is the world expert on the Orthodox parish as community. You can get it on Amazon. Hardenbrook is his name. And what we find is that people are in a time when all distinctions are dissolving. People are relying on the parish for distinctive relationships. I think this is very important. They don't know the people of their neighborhood. Some of them do. Some of them do. And those are good people because they've gone out of the way to meet their neighbors. Most of us don't. We don't know our neighbors. We don't know the people at the grocery store hardly. We don't know the people at the YMCA or the gym we go to. We will smile and wave once in a while, but that's pretty much it. The only other place we actually connect with people is in a healthy parish. If a parish is not healthy, you will avoid everybody in it. If a parish is healthy, you feel safe to kind of slide in and sample the relationships and figure out where do I fall into place here? Where am I comfortable here? I do feel at home here. I just need to find my place, and we try to make it easy to do that. But part of that is, and this is actually one of the important things that, again, nobody talks about. When a person comes into an Orthodox church, they're not there to pray. They're there to watch. And what they're watching for is not what people think. They're watching to see, is it safe? Is this a safe place for me to pray? Once they figure out that it probably is safe, or they're very intrigued by what's going on, they want to know, how do I become Orthodox? Well, 30 years ago, the way you became Orthodox is the priest handed you a book, usually Callisto's Ware's Orthodox Church, said, read this, and then get back to me and we'll talk. And you did that for about 6 months to a year. And then at the end of that, with practically no catechesis, but getting to know the people in the parish and letting them get to know you, you were brought into the church. Well, that's crazy today. That's the height of amateurish foolishness. So we have set up a catechism process, and and I try to get people to think. Don't think about projects. Don't think about classes. Think about a process. The process is what people are looking for. How do I do what I do? What do you have set up? What's in place? What am I supposed to be doing? So we have first a new member class, and it's at newmemberclass.com. Anybody can see it, and many people actually check it out without us saying, hey, check out this class first. It's on our website, but it has its own domain name, newmemberclass.com. It's an hour long, presumes nothing. Starts with what is the gospel? What is the church? What are the benefits of being a member of the church? What does the church believe? What does the church practice? And it ends with what are the parish membership expectations for people in our parish? And they're kind of high. They're kind of high. We raised the
I think I
bar for
watched
it.
that. I watched
Yeah,
that.
very successful because it weeds out people that want to sort of get in there and not do anything but tell everybody else what to do. So once they're through that and they sign the parish membership expectations, it's not a contract or anything. We just want people to say, sign it to say, we know you've read this because this is what everybody in our parish has agreed to. Whether they do it or not, this is what they've agreed to do. And then we start them on the catechism process. It's 21 video lessons, my face talking most of the time. Then there are 16 audio lectures by Father Josiah Trenum and worksheets. Then there's a Bible survey class based on my book Called to Serve. It's a Bible survey workbook actually, but it's 20 lessons. It's real easy. The lessons are short, but it takes you through all the books of the Orthodox Bible. And since 85% of the Bible is the Old Testament, you actually learn a lot about the Old Testament. And it makes the Bible much more comfortable. Then we go through the book by Clark Carlton, The Faith. It's not only an excellent book as a catechism, but there's beautiful questions at the end of each chapter for discussion. And the mutually informative discussion is very, very helpful. And then finally, there's some lectures they listen to on confession in anticipation of their first confession. That all takes around a year, a liturgical year. At the very least, people have been through a Lenten cycle and a festal cycle. And as a result, when people come into the church, there's a whole year of little boxes for them to check. One at a time, they know they're making progress. They know where they are in the process. They're very comfortable because there is a process. And then once they're baptized, there's a whole new checklist of things to do. We want you to visit a monastery. We want you to visit other Orthodox churches. We want you to go through these checklists. We want you to attend every single great feast. Very important. We're going to actually keep attendance. Hate to say it, but that's what it is. Newcomers, newly illumined, must attend services unless they have a reason worthy of a blessing. And of course, we're not draconian about it. We simply want to make sure people say, well, this is important and an important part of your formation. Instead of people reading a couple books and having a couple of chats with the priest, they've been through a lot of information, given a lot of different ways, and they've had a lot of discussion with people in the parish, including their fellow catechumens
I
and
like
newcomers and stuff. Yeah, it's
I
been
like
very
this.
successful.
I like how you have, for a serious convert, someone who's, on fire with love of God, they want this kind of thing, give me, I want something to do, practical steps to follow. People who are serious, who love God, that's what they want. They're thirsty for this kind of thing. So I think that sounds like a great program.
It was actually born out of the fact that I couldn't go everywhere and do classes. I had to do classes online altogether so that everybody at every mission could attend those classes. And after a couple of years, I said, what am I? What, just record these stupid things. Why am I
Sure.
constantly cycling through the things over and over again? So we recorded them, and that's been history sort of ever since. And it saved us a lot of grief because everybody goes through the same process. Now I think, again, I don't know, but I think just as we were the first ones to do Orthodox Internet Radio, I think we were the first online catechism. There are many online catechisms now, and I'm not upset by that at all. I'm happy about it because what makes me special? I don't have a doctoral degree. I'm not a theologian. I'm a pastor. I'm a preacher. That's my gift, or my calling anyway. Not sure it's very gifted, but the point is that smarter people than me are starting to dip into this. Other people than me, whether they're smarter or not, are taking a different tack on it, and I think that's very good. I really do believe that competition breeds excellence. I do believe people should have a choice to do whatever they want, go wherever they want to go. More churches, not less. There's too often Orthodox people think there's only so many Orthodox people in this county. We can't support 2 Orthodox churches. To which I always say, you take all the Orthodox people. I'll take all the non-Orthodox people. We'll make them Orthodox. Easy, easy. Just if somebody wants to go, let them go where they want to go. And I've had many of my parishioners leave my parish and go somewhere where, my mission doesn't have a lot of money. We don't have big iconostasis. We don't have a lot of pretty stuff. They want to go to a more pretty church. God bless them. Let them go. No problem. But if they want to be part of what we're doing, then they will stick around and stay. So I've told people all over the country, if you want to start a mission, I'll do everything I can do to help you out. I may not be able to visit personally, but if I can, I will. And if not, I'll show you what to do in the meantime. How do you train people to be readers? How do you train people to do reader services? It couldn't be more simple. I mean, Orthodox people should all know how to do reader services. It's not that hard. And there are even places that produce weekly documents telling you everything you know to do the weekly service for that week as a reader. You don't have to do anything other than literally read what's on the sheet. So, especially now we're looking at the mystery of iniquity sort of rolling forward for us. Will they close churches? They did in the past. And in other countries, they always do it. Will they shut us out of our church? Will they burn our churches down? Will they hunt down some of our clergy? Who cares? We'll train people to do services wherever they are. We'll train people to give catechism wherever they are. I had a group that used my catechism videos as the central part of their meeting, and then after the video was done, they had another hour of discussion, which that must have been very rich discussion because most of those people were theologically educated. They were asking intelligent questions. They were looking into orthodoxy, and we were trying to sort of adjust the nuance of certain things, terms like original sin, ancestral sin, atonement. We have to be very careful when we talk about that in orthodoxy to distinguish it from the false understanding in Western Christianity. So having conversations like that is very, very formative, very helpful. And the video number 21 in the catechism is the introduction to the interior life. We cover the stages of temptation, which people don't pay attention to enough. We cover the curative exercises for the soul, the exercises according to the fathers, which are good for the mind, the heart, and the will, to strengthen them. And we talk about the techniques of watchfulness, which are universally helpful when you're struggling with temptation. So we want our people to get into very early in their catechism the practice of this cultivating the interior life. By the time they get to Pascha and they hear the Gospel of John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and God was the Word. He dwelt among us. It has an illumination effect on people, and they're ready for it at that point. So what I'm saying is, All of that is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about planting a church. Starting with one person, starting with one family, finding a place to worship. When we were in Sholo, we had nowhere to worship. We worshiped under the pines, literally. And some of our favorite memories are now that they have a chapel of their own. We remember when we used to worship under the pines, the giant pine trees in the middle of the White Mountains up in northern Arizona. It's not desert at all. It looks like Colorado or Alaska. And we had our table out. We had our altar there. Had the censer. Everybody standing out there on a Saturday morning. Unbelievably peaceful. So much so that word got around. You wouldn't believe how hard it was to get to where we did this. We had a parishioner lived off grid, and just about the time you were convinced your car was never going to get out of the forest and you were stuck forever, you found his place. So if somebody came to the church at that point, we knew they were looking for us. We knew that they were serious about it. And one experience like that, it was life changing. It was fantastic, just utterly fantastic. And so we just endeavor to duplicate the same opportunism in every environment that we had. In Bullhead City, we baptized people in the Colorado River. It looks brown, but when I scooped up a bowl of it for the Great Blessing of Waters, I looked at it and I didn't see any water, so I dumped it out. It was crystal clear. I've never seen such clear water. And there's boats going up and down all the time. It looks muddy, but it's perfectly clear. I mean, perfectly clear. Just little things like this that you don't anticipate. Wonderful moments of God and His creation. And this I think we need to pay attention to. People need to get their hands dirty more often. People need to be out in the wilderness a little bit more often, even if it's at the edge of the city or at the edge of the river. But I don't see why I mean, there's 5 million people in Phoenix. We'd have 20 more Orthodox churches here if we had 20 more Orthodox priests. But we don't grow on trees. And let me be real honest. There's no long line of clergy and seminarians lining up to run to Arizona. But we have missions that need priests. And we're starting new ones all the time. So we hope that necessity will be the mother of ordination, and that God will send us the men that we need to do, because we have so much work to do. So much work to do. Young men and young families are finding us. We're doing nothing, and they're finding us. Low-hanging fruit. They're inundating us, but we don't need numbers. We have so much work. We don't need numbers. We need men, and I say men, who are willing to die for Christ. You give us one of those, and he'll be busy here for sure. For sure. Sorry, you got me going a little bit there.
Yeah, that's great. One of my favorite saints that I have read a lot of in the past was Saint Isaac, and he says, when you begin a work, a good work, which you could say maybe being a Christian is a good work, set death as the limit of your struggle.
Mm.
In other words, be prepared to die for what you're beginning to do.
Every day. You got to be ready every day. That's the same thing I noticed about the fathers. And as a young man who was a martial artist, samurai. Samurai would leave his house every day, bed made, clothes folded, in case, even if he dies, everything's in its proper place. Now, my wife will tell you I don't make my bed every day. She does it. And I do my best to get my socks in the hamper. Not always successful, but I do try to make sure that my world is orderly, so that even if I die, things are in their proper place. And I remember, because I was a judo player for many years, one of the great judo champions, Olympic gold medalist. He made everything look easy. Just grab someone and they kind of would drop to the floor and they couldn't get him off. He was so good. His name was Yamashita. and they sort of followed him around one day, and they noticed that his bed was always made, his clothes were always folded, everything was orderly. And they asked him, "Why do you do that?" He goes, "That way, even if I die, everything's in place." And that's how you do Christian mission work. That's how you do Christian mission work. I'm also very, very happy and very excited that after so many decades of a few guys here and there doing absolutely heroic work, we're seeing more and more Christian apologists, and of course, because of YouTube and others, they have a broad platform. But we're seeing some great apologists online. For a long time, there were a couple of guys here and there. Father Hopko was everybody's favorite. He wasn't an apologist. He was a teacher. Not a good apologist. I'm not trying to denigrate his memory. But the Willard preacher, Gary Cattell, who stands outside of Willard Hall at Penn State University and has for 30 years preaching the gospel from the street in front of college students. And they'll mock anybody for any reason. They'll pelt you with books or fruit or anything. He has stood out in front of that hall for 30 years and answered questions and preached the gospel. I actually called him once and I said, "I run a preaching website and you've been preaching like nobody else's business. I want to know, what you do." And I said, "Why do you do it? What brought you to do this?" He said, "Well, I converted to Orthodoxy and I just knew that this is what I had to do. I knew that was my calling and I had to fulfill it." And he's been doing it for 30 years. And of course, if you go to the Willard Preacher's website, I think it's thewillardpreacher.com or .org or something. He has what he calls the preacher's notebook. It is a treasure trove of apologetic material and articles. If you're talking to Roman Catholics, these are the Bible verses you want to memorize. Talking to Protestants, talking to Muslims, these are the topics you want to hit. These are the scriptures you want to. He's done all the work. He's done all the work. And this is 30 years of standing out, taking the unbelievable amount of abuse. You can't even imagine the amount of abuse this guy has suffered on his own, alone, all by himself. Absolutely heroic. And too few people don't even know who he is. But now we're seeing his heirs come online. They have taken what he's doing and they're taking it to the next level. He has provided the platform upon which they are doing their spectacular work. So this is very encouraging for me. I wrote the article, "The Orthodox Church of Tomorrow," almost got me defrocked, but it didn't say anything that 100 priests hadn't said it 1,000 times before. I just wrote it down. But the point is that things are changing, and people who are living on the status quo are not going to like it, but they can't stop it because it's just happening. And I'm not talking about changing to progressive values or ideology. I think just the opposite. Things are changing, and the availability of resources and minds and energy are going to be at our disposal, and they're going to be funneled in powerful ways into the very things that we're struggling to meet with. And it's turned out to be accurate, thank God. Nothing prophetic about it, just observational. But I'm very glad that it's been true.
The Orthodox Church of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
You said, where is that published? Where can I read that?
Oh, you can type it in on any search browser. It'll
Okay.
probably come up on my blog.
Okay. Yeah. Now you've piqued my interest.
Yeah, and believe me, you're going to look at it and go, "What's the big deal about this?" There's literally nothing salacious about this at all. It's ridiculous. It's obvious. But back then, nobody talked about it. And I got in big trouble for it. You can't even imagine. Wow. American Orthodox Institute covered a little bit of it. George Michaelopoulos at Monomachos covered a little bit about it. And, we just return to it every once in a while and see how some of those projections have worked out. I think actually we've passed by most of them. They're in the rearview mirror now. So thank God. Thank God.
Okay. Here's a question. I think this is something that you've talked about maybe. So you have these conferences, the what is it called? I had it written down. The
Mission conference.
mission conference.
Right.
I think, and you talk about. Could you talk a little bit about growth principles? So once you started the parish, what are the principles to make it grow?
A couple things is you don't ever want to go backwards. It's very easy to I actually don't even want to discuss that, but the
Oh,
principle
okay,
is
sorry.
only go forward. If you're in one location and you go to another location and suddenly you hit a lot of trouble, don't go back to where you were. Go forward to something else.
Hmm.
That's the best sort of look at it. And secondly, and this is why I require people to take the new member class, one of the parish membership expectations is we do not gossip or murmur or engage in negative talk. Now, that might seem like, oh, you're trying to control everything. Yes, I'm trying to control this especially. Gossip destroys parishes. Gossip destroys relationships. And if it's left unchecked, and a lot of priests don't quite know what to do about it, if it's left unchecked, it will destroy a parish like nothing else will. So I just told my people, any of you who've ever been to a church before know how dangerous gossip is. I don't have time to monitor it. I'm not checking on you. I'm
Right.
asking you if you're caught in gossip for a minute, stop yourself. That's it.
Sure.
If someone is gossiping, just say, "Hey, wait a minute. We're leaning into gossip. We don't want to do that." If they're offended by what you've done, they will leave the parish,
Yeah.
and God will bless them. Go. God will bless you, just not here. Go somewhere else. That's perfectly fine. But I would say that's a key thing. Also, I harp on this a lot. Um, there's the enemies of the soul are the world, the flesh, and the devil, right? As we know from the scriptures. And we fight them with the most basic foundational spiritual disciplines. We fight the devil through prayer. We fight the flesh through fasting. And we fight the world, materialism, through generous giving, tithing, almsgiving. People think that tithing is offering anything to the church. It's not. Tithing is giving you the first fruits and specifically a tenth. Now, I tell my people, according to St. John Chrysostom, the New Testament is a superior covenant, right, than the Old Testament. So, New Testament righteousness must exceed Old Testament righteousness. So far, so good. So, if the Old Testament required you to tithe 10% of the first of what you got from God, then the New Testament standard must be tithe 10% plus one. Just plus one. Throw an extra dollar on it. And you are in the New Testament righteousness. And baby, that ain't impossible. And baby, that ain't hard. But when you do it, you suddenly realize how easy it is, how simple it is. Some people look at that and go, who could possibly live like that? Once you've done it, it becomes super easy. And you realize you're in an entirely different level. Now, some people will often say to the priest, Father, I can't afford to tithe. Or my favorite, Father, I'm getting ready to go to a family function. May I have your blessing not to fast? I said, to a priest, that's exactly like saying, Father, I'm going to be very, very busy. May I have your blessing not to pray? Because prayer, fasting, and tithing are all basic spiritual disciplines. No, I'm not going to bless you not to pray. That's crazy. And I'm not going to bless you not to fast. Whatever you decide to do, do. Give thanks to God for it. Okay. If you can't tithe plus one, don't ask for a blessing to do it. Decide what you're going to do and do it and give thanks to God. Okay. But don't ask for a blessing to not fulfill the most basic Christian disciplines from the beginning of the religion. That's ridiculous. Instead, work on where you're at and improve.
Sure.
Because you can pray at a fantastic level and you can fast on water for a month. But if you're giving, let's not pretend it's not important. There's over 2,300 verses in the Bible on money and possessions. There's nowhere near that much on heaven and hell. 2,300 verses. If this is the amount of your generosity, that's the extent of your spiritual maturity. That's it. Somebody, the Natural Church Development says that the staves of a bucket, a bushel, like an apple bushel, they have those little wooden staves that make up the bushel. You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, if all the wood comes up to the top of the bushel except for one, then and you pour water in that bushel, it'll never go beyond the lowest one. So if generosity is your lowest skill, that's as much as your spiritual life you're going to get. But it helps to know. It helps to know where you're actually at. And this is another thing we tell people about. I don't know how much people in my parish make. I don't know how much people in my parish give. I don't care. I tell them, follow these practices. And by the way, starting a mission takes commitment. If you're not committed, please don't please don't retard the development of everybody else who is really committing. In order to create something from nothing, you can't have a half-hearted commitment. Everybody's got to be in. They've got to be part of the team. Oh, there's one other thing, and I don't know that everybody will agree with me on this, but in my parishes, we don't do anything unless we have full consensus. Okay, we don't take votes, because if you have consensus, then everybody will be on board. If you don't have consensus, then you need to talk about it more, or you need to forget it, because voting will simply divide the parish. And when you only have a small number of people, remember, we're not talking about 100 people. We're talking about 30 people, 40 people, 50, 60, 70, 80 at the tops before it becomes a much larger enterprise. So you can't have people divided on what you're trying to do. They've got to be of one mind on these things. They've got to get together. And it's not impossible. It's not like herding cats, but you do have to raise the bar so that people who are serious realize you are serious. Until they realize you're serious, they don't commit. And I think that's the big deal, is you want to show them you're serious. You want to show them that you're raising the bar of parish life, and that you are serious about what you're doing, because then they realize, okay, you actually are serious about this. I'm in. I'm all in. This is what I've been looking for. Christians who are serious about what they're doing. I'm not saying that others aren't. I'm simply saying in a mission, you can't have half-hearted people. You can't have orbiters, people who come on Christmas and Pascha and Palm Sunday and one or two other times when their mom or dad died. You have to have people who are committed to the community, committed to the mission. Now, I will say one other thing. Statistically, again, we're dealing with statistics because it's a reality. When you start a mission, statistically, within the first 3 to 5 years, you will lose 1/3 to 2/3 of the people you started with. It's a universal truth. Circumstances take them away. They get angry at the priest. They get angry at somebody else. Something happens and they've got to do something different. It just always happens that way. You can't be upset about it. You can't say, what did I do wrong? It's just the nature of the beast. Attrition is universal. That's why you have to have a constant flow of newcomers, and they have to exceed the number of people who are dying and leaving. There's no other way to say that, unfortunately. But anyway, that's my take on the magic pill about stuff like this. There's nothing magic about it. It's hidden in plain sight. You just have to do it, and you're not going to get any help to do it. That's the other very disturbing part. You have to do it yourself. I'm willing to happily help out in any way I can. When when people say I need to have a checklist, I need to start collecting things, I always say there's one thing that you have to get. It won't, nothing will replace it, and it's absolutely necessary for Orthodox services. And they're saying, oh, what is it? Chalice set? No. Censer? No. Gospel book? No. A censer stand. When you're done with the censer, you have to hang it on a stand. Nothing else takes its place. Now you can get them on Amazon for like $180. I'm not lying. We get the cheap ones. They're brass or nickel or something. They're perfect. They're heavy. They stay. They're much better than anything you'll make at home on your own, unless that's all you have, or a giant hook stuck in the wall. That's cool too. But the reality is that if you're a mission, you're going to often have to move from place to place, and having at least one, if not two, censer stands. The priest can always find a censer, can always find a gospel book, can always find a chalice set, an extra one from somewhere. But censer stands do not grow on trees. Buy them while you can get them. That's the one thing I tell people always start with. And as you can see, it's not intuitive, but it's eminently practical. If I show up and they have everything I need, the one thing they will be short of is a censer stand. If I show up and there's a censer stand, I can take care of everything else. I can do that myself. But the censer stands, I know it sounds really dumb, but believe me, this is after 30 years of going around to different rural parishes all over the place, Alaska, all over the Midwest, out here in the Southwest, lots of places. I beg people, get a freaking censer stand. In fact, get two. Put one by the table of oblation, put one on the other side of the altar so I don't have to carry it back and forth at certain times of the service. And that solves so many problems for a priest. And luckily, they're also cheap. Like I said, they're under $200 each. They're very solid. They don't bend easily. They don't break easily. They're nice and solid, but they're absolutely, for all practical purposes, they're necessary. You have to have something like it, or you have to have somebody stand there and hold the censer while you have someone else get the charcoal, get the incense, do this, do that. You literally have to have somebody stand there the whole service just holding the censer. It's ridiculous. It's a much better deal. So there's another little secret of mine. To me, that's really important.
There's your take home, everybody. If you're starting a parish, get a censer stand. If anybody's watching has any questions, you have a priest here, who can give you an answer. So you can drop it in the chat if you'd like. There's so much that you've said that I didn't break. I decided to let you go. I didn't break in and to
Oh, you
comment.
definitely should have interrupted me. Yeah,
Maybe I should have. There was so much I could have said. Here's a thought that I wanted to bring up is, it seems like you're kind of maybe ahead of your time. Like you've kind of started, you kind of had a hand in the getting ancient faith started. You never know.
No. Again, I didn't. I just,
Okay.
I don't want to take credit where credit is due. John Maddox did fantastic work, but I just did it before anybody else did it, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing.
Just go out and do it. That's kind of how I've done my YouTube channel, and that's, my spiritual father supports me, which is a big help.
Oh yeah, then you're doing the right thing.
But I just went and kind of did it, and no one's telling me what to do. I'm figuring it out as I go. But you never know. You were talking about this radio show. You never know like what seeds you're planting out there. If there's you might know the priest Father Boris Henderson, I think is, or no, what is his name? No. What is the father who is at the cathedral in DC? Father Boris something, I think is his name. Anyhow, he was involved in, it was like radio, some radio show broadcasting like back in the 70s during the Soviet Union, and they were broadcasting a religious Orthodox Christian show into Russia. They got through the radars or whatever. And he tells the story that he was you never hear back. You don't necessarily know where those seeds are dropping and sprouting up, but
Oh,
they
yeah.
were. And like 30 years later, he was having people who would come and look him up and find him, at his parish when he had become a priest later. And they were saying, that was the only spiritual food we had in the Soviet Union, and I became a Christian because of that radio show. He was
Oh,
just broadcasting
beautiful.
into the ether.
Right, and no idea what the feedback actually
Yeah,
was.
yeah. I mean, like I have on my show, I only like maybe 1% of the people are commenting. I try to
Right,
encourage people to comment because I don't know who you are. I don't know what's going on. The comment is like my feedback, so I know
right.
it kind of directs my show in a way.
Oh,
But like
absolutely.
I'm
It's
having
very
like
important.
every day there's hundreds, sometimes thousands of views on my channel. I don't know who you are. I don't know how much of what you watched and what's going on, but I'm hoping, well, I know that maybe 30 years later, these seeds will sprout. I'm hoping. And
Oh,
anyhow,
yeah, I can tell you just the 2 quick stories, and I promise they're quick. I used to listen to Family Life Radio, and one of the guys I listened to regularly was, named Chuck Powell, and I heard Chuck Powell became Orthodox, so I called him up and I said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And, I said, "I know who you are, welcome to the faith. If you have any questions, I'm, happy to help, but I just wanna let you know you're not alone, and I know a little bit about your career." Well, he went to seminary and, became Father Barnabas Powell, who's very well known now, and we sort of followed his career, and I had the opportunity, as we often do, we know each other online, but we had the chance to meet face to face when we were both at a symposium in Crete a couple years ago. And that's also where I happened to meet Hank Hanegraaff, who was the Bible Answer Man, who also just became Orthodox. So it was a wonderful chance to meet people that I loved and I knew about and I admired very much. And now we're all Orthodox together. It was just a lot of fun. And let me give you an example of what you're talking about. You're not sure what's going on, if it's making any difference. I was assigned to a little rural parish in southern Illinois, about an hour north of Kentucky, just out of the blue. There used to be 6 Orthodox churches down there. As Russian immigrants came over, they became miners, and the whole area was peppered with these beautiful neighborhood communal churches. And they were beautiful architecture too. And mine was the last one that was left. And one day, a young man called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you." And I lived in Royalton, and Royalton is like, well, it says it's 1,200 people, but if it's 500 people, I'll eat my shoe. And there's 6 churches there. So he came over and he said, "Hi, my name's Lucas. I'm the youngest Baptist preacher in Illinois." I said, "Hey, I'm happy to meet you. Come on in. We'll do Vespers. We'll talk a little bit afterwards." And for about 2 weeks, talked to him, answered his questions. He was a delightful guy, a lot of energy, a little bit precocious, even, just a lot of fun to be around. And after 2 weeks, we didn't hear from him. My wife said, "Have you heard from that young man?" I said, "No, I hadn't heard from him." And I don't know how many years later it was. Probably at least 10 or 12 years later, I get a phone call. "Hi, you probably don't remember me. My name is Lucas Rice." "Yeah, I remember you, Lucas." He goes, "Yeah. I'm about to graduate from St. Vladimir's Theological Seminary and be ordained a priest. And I just wanted to let you know because you were my introduction to Orthodoxy." And I said, "Well, at least I didn't blow it. Thank God for that." But, we talked for 2 weeks. We didn't hear from you. We continued to pray for you, of course. But what a delight to hear that you took the tiny, tiny bit that we were able to do for you and took it all the way through to the priesthood. He continued on to the Academy of Preachers. He's a great preacher today. And, if you're listening to this, Father Lucas, I love you and eager to talk to you again. But there again, you don't know who's paying attention, who's reading what you put up there. This is why it's very important, by the way. You don't know who's reading what you wrote, so don't be crazy about it. Put something up there that's worthy of being up for 100 years. Uh, uh, because sometimes the Holy Spirit brings the person to you at the right moment for them. and you can't blow it. You've got to be ready. You've got to execute your duty at that moment. And so for what it's worth, that's what we've always tried to do. But as I said, undoubtedly you'll experience this too. People say, "Oh, I know who you are. You did this, you wrote that, you do this website or whatever." You talked to me some time ago. I got a call from a guy, email, excuse me. Wonderful man. I talked to him not very much actually, as I recall, but he was asking some questions about Orthodoxy and had several deep conversations. And then he became Orthodox. I congratulated him, and I was very happy about it. Said, "Send me a picture." I always want to see people in their entrance into the church. Then never heard from him again. And I found out he's in a book of conversion stories that was just published, and my name's in the book. So I've got to buy the book and I've got to look into it. But again, my interaction with him was so minor. I'm sure that it probably says something like, "I talked to Father John, he recommended me these books and sent me to somewhere else." That's about all that really happened.
Mhm.
But he remembered that we talked, and that was kind of nice. It makes you realize that everything you're doing isn't completely worthless, and
Sure.
that
Yeah.
even a blind squirrel can find an acorn once in a while. So thank God for that.
This
Thank
is
God for that.
this is good to talk about because I've kind of been I've been a little bit discouraged the last couple of weeks. My subs have kind of gone up, and now when you get a few more subscribers, then you start to get some trolls and people
Yeah.
and attacking you.
Oh,
So
but you should be jump for joy. That means you've arrived. Look, if you were no threat, nobody would bother you.
yeah,
It's like when I moved to Prescott. I started up there. Half of the people in town are Mormons. The other half belong to Potter's House, which isn't really a Christian group. They masquerade as a church, but they don't believe in the divinity or the Trinity, uh, uh, Trinity of God or the divinity of Christ. And they don't tell people that. So when I found out that the Potter's House was starting to preach against icons, and that the Mormons were starting to preach against the Orthodox, I was like, "We've arrived. This is fantastic." They're taking us seriously. Before, we escaped detection. They didn't even know we were here. Now they know we're here, and their people are coming into our church, so they've got to speak up. So please don't feel bad. That means you've done it. That means you've
yeah.
actually arrived. If you weren't standing for something, they wouldn't be bothering you. So good job. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Welcome
Um,
aboard.
so Father John told me before the stream that would be willing to go on to other channels and be interviewed. So if you're another YouTuber out there listening to this, you can contact him. I can tell you if you want to contact me. I can tell you how to get in touch with him. As you can see, he's a great interviewee. So I'm hoping that other people will start inviting you on your show. Be careful because once you get known, you will be inundated. You with
Well,
interview.
I don't worry about that too much. I have a very, very limited number of subscribers, like to my class, ecclesiasm.
Sure.
So when somebody says, "Well, maybe you're a nano influencer," I said, "No, I'm not even a nano
It's because
influencer."
you're on. It's
It's
because
like
you're on Rumble.
so tiny.
It's
It's a
because you're on
tiny,
Rumble,
tiny group.
Father. They just don't have a tenth of the audience on Rumble. That's why.
Oh, sure, sure. But no, I'm always happy to. I'm always happy to answer questions, and when you talk for a living, the problem is once you get going, you can't shut up. That's a
hmm,
problem. But we're very fortunate today. Back in the day, you might have had one or two really good teachers that you could interview. Today, we have so many great, great guys. Father Hans Jacobsy, Father Thaddeus Hardenbrook, Father John Whiteford. Uh, I mean, there's no shortage of stellar little intellects that you can bring in that are articulate, that have used to mixing it up with people, so they're very comfortable talking about the faith. They're very comfortable talking about the unexpected consequences of this or that or whatever, and they have They have great wisdom and they have great vision. So we're fortunate today that we have so many great minds in Orthodoxy, both lay and clerical, that can talk about the faith and not only defend it, but explain it in a way that people who are not Orthodox can understand. Why is the Orthodox Church different? Why don't we think the same way as Roman Catholics? Why are we different from Protestants? Why are we different from Jews? They don't have any idea, but it's easy to explain. And those who have an ear to hear, let them hear. We'll let the rest, we'll leave the Holy Spirit in charge of the rest. Make up whatever's lacking.
There's a question. What is his Rumble channel? I'll let you answer that.
Oh, hold on. I better look it up. I don't actually know the name of it.
I have it's in the description of the show, so people can just simply go and click on Ecclesioclasm below, and it's that simple.
Well, certainly it's got to be. Where would I find the actual title of my page? And it sounds ridiculous. I know.
think it's like rumble.com/ecclesioclasm.
Let me see my content here. Rumble/account, content, type all. Yeah, I'm not sure. But if you type in John Peck, it should come up. I apologize. Nobody's ever asked me that question before.
Do you have
Fr. John Peck?
Oh, is that it?
I think so.
Okay. Anyhow, I know it's in the description. I made a point to put it in there.
Thank you.
It's
kind of embarrassing. It's actually very embarrassing.
As we wind down here, is there anything else that you would like to say? How people can find you, or any announcement or anything else that you'd like to say before we?
It's easy to find me. I mean, if you put in Fr. John Peck, I come up. The Preachers Institute, journeytoorthodoxy.com, goodguyswearblack.org, orthodoxacademy.org, frjohnpeck.com, and my parish website, which is loaded with lots of catechetical information, which is arizonaorthodox.com. From there, you can see just about everything that you need to see. But mostly, like you said, if we know there's another body out here, there's people that have to travel a long way in. I want to encourage those people. Don't sit around. Find out if there's a priest willing to come out and to visit you. And even if he just says, well, I'll come and do liturgy, that's a start. But don't just come together for liturgy. Come together every week. There's ways we can teach you to do reader services. Come together every single week, and then hopefully you can get a priest to come out once a month, even on a Saturday, consistently enough so that you receive the sacraments and so that you can still gather together and grow as a parish. Because I'm telling you, sometime in the next couple of years, churches are not going to be open, priests are not going to be available, things are going to be much, much more difficult for Orthodox Christians. Take advantage of this time while you can. Get organized while you can. And, always hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And I mean, the worst. It doesn't take that much to put together an Orthodox chapel, even a hidden one that's not written down anywhere. It doesn't take that much to buy an extra case of wine. It doesn't take that much to buy a little incense, some charcoal. The things that are needed for Orthodox worship when it's hard to find a place to worship. Don't be shy about it. Don't be afraid of it. And God willing, maybe it will turn into a mission. You might be one of those few people that actually has the advantage of building up a church that will exist until the second coming of Christ. Wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be a great thing to be able to say, I did that. I helped with that. In fact, one of the things I have to do is I have to get up to the Sholo mission pretty soon. They're putting in the flooring and the ceiling, and I want to, forgive me, I want to drive one nail into the place so I can say, I helped build that. I put one nail in it. I actually did help physically build that place just as well I spiritually built it, because they have their own priest now. So I'll be forgotten pretty quick, but at least I'll be able to say I did drive a nail or two. I did actually do that. So it's not every day the chance to actually build up a chapel or a church comes along for an Orthodox Christian. For most of us, it's actually a dream come true. So I say, if you can't get to where they're trying to do that, build one yourself. Just do it. That if you build it, they will come. Today, especially, we are inundated with young men. We're inundated with young families, and I'm not the only one. Every Orthodox priest I talk to has exactly the same glorious problem. We have too many young men. We have too many young families. It's a great problem. If the babies ain't crying, the church is dying, and the church is not dying. It's very healthy right now.
All right. Well, I guess sounds like that's our show for the night. So thank you very, very much again, Father John, for almost 2 hours of your time.
Oh my goodness. I
And
didn't realize that took so much time. Thank you for the invitation and for your
yeah,
patience.
this has been great. Good food for the faithful. Next week, I think I have I'm working on another interview I've got planned with a local MC, another MC, and I might have I'll just kind of tease that I'm kind of working on a secret project right now.
Nice.
So people will find out about that as time goes on, if God blesses it.
Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Wonderful. And I want to thank you again for the invitation and the kind words about my ecclesiasm class. We do our best because not everybody has the time to look into everything, but certainly it's a strange time in history. So we want to draw near to Christ and pray for each other as much as we can. So thanks again for having me on. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, with everything going on in the world, I'm like, I'd better be ready to die, like because this could be the end here anytime.
It could be any time, and glory to God when the time comes. If you're not living to 90 and whatever end God ordains, fantastic. If you live longer than you should, then you got time to pray and repent. If you live shorter than everybody else, then you don't have to go through a lot of the stuff that older people have to go through. Again, you get a chance to glorify God. Just be ready. Just be ready. Take the time for repentance now. So yeah, good job. And thanks again. I appreciate the Young Penitent show a great deal, and I'm very happy to be included. Thanks so much.
A few comments here I want to address. Esaias says, "Why is that?" I'm not sure what his question is about. If he wants to clarify what he's asking, I think we might have passed that moment, but he can drop another comment. Someone is asking your prayer. I'm not sure what this person's name is. They have I guess you can pray for Evangelize.
Mm-hmm.
Say a prayer, offer up a prayer for her.
Certainly.
I think it's a her. I'm not sure.
Certainly, I won't forget. And in the meantime, also, rely on the Holy Spirit to make up what's lacking in us. We forget to do that sometimes. God loves us. He wants to get involved. Let him get involved. It's okay. It's not all on us. It's not all on you. Rely on the Holy Spirit.
It's a guy.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. Yeah. Rely on the Holy Spirit. Okay. So, if there's nothing else, we will end the stream. Good night, everybody, and God bless.
God bless.